you and Sandy are, and Sandy is taking the lead in the statement of claim, but you're in it together, are moving down a groundbreaking road in terms of legal action, and a very difficult one. And it would have been difficult if it was a suit just on the basis of what happened to your wife, but it's also difficult launching this kind of class action suit. So the obvious question is why? Why are you doing this?
Well, it's a great question. That's a great question. First of all, from what I've read, this has been going on for a very, very long time. I've heard through what I consider to be reliable sources that there have been many, many lawsuits against chiropractors, the bulk of which people don't generally get very far. I look at it, frankly, the people that we've talked to, at some point you have to trust the individuals that you're talking to. And it's not just us. We're not alone. And I think in our situation right now, we're probably financially in a position where most things I'm going to be able to provide for Sandy. But it wasn't long after spending a great deal of time at the hospital that we realized that there are many, many victims who haven't gotten anywhere with their claims through the lack of maybe dealing with the wrong lawyers, not having the right knowledge, or maybe not even recognizing what it is they're dealing with and where it originated. So our position was, how do we impact the greatest number of people and help those who have maybe even suffered stroke but really didn't get anywhere financially and don't have the wherewithal to bring their loved ones home? I vowed to Sandy very early on that the last thing I would want would be to see her in an institution for the rest of her life. I said to Sandy, I don't care if we have to live in a tent. That will never, ever happen. I will look after you till the day I die, that's for sure. But then we think about all the other people who have suffered similar fate and are now incapacitated in one form or another. And our thinking is, by going through a class action suit, we're going to touch a lot of lives. It's not just the past people, the past victims that have been affected by these ridiculous manipulations. It's the present and it's the future. It's the future. It's what has to change. Everything up until now has been status quo and the beat goes on. I understand that there's so many neurologists. I just was in a home this morning doing a service call. I work now mornings, and then I spend my afternoons and my evenings with my wife. But I was speaking to a retired radiologist who said the same thing. Yes, we've seen many, many victims, young women, young men, more women than men, but with the that had just either come from a chiropractor's office or a few days previous and sustained these serious strokes. And all he could say to me, this elderly gentleman, was, this retired doctor, was, thank goodness something is finally going to happen here, because I understand that this fight's been going on for a very, very long time. Sandy's a very compassionate woman. I have a lot of empathy and compassion for people in these situations, but having experienced it firsthand, I can't think, and now Sandy's case is on the real extreme. It's everyone's worst nightmare to be in a position like Sandy where you're literally, as Sandy would describe it to me, she would always say, David, I feel like I'm a prisoner in my body, and yet I can feel every pinprick, every needle, every IV, every lump on my skin if I get a bruise, if they leave me too long in my diaper and the acid starts to burn my skin and someone forgets to put the call bell beside me on my bed. These are every day. It's like being in a torture camp, and I'm not trying to make the hospital sound bad. They're terrific. They're terrific. But my wife lives in a prison, and the sooner I can get her home and start looking after her myself, the better. This is where I think we're going to see Sandy finally have a little bit of peace, and we are bringing her home on the weekends now, but I have to admit, usually by weekend's end, I am an absolute basket case.
It's too much for you.
David, are you an angry man?
No, I'm frustrated. I do get angry, and at times I have found myself in the basement of our home alone, feeling angry, but the sadness for my wife overtakes any anger. I am so devastated for my wife. If I could trade places with Sandy, you know, I'd like to say to them I'm a big enough man that I would do it. And I'll tell you now that I would, but I don't know. It is such a living hell. Am I angry? I'm not angry per se, but I'm angry that the government hasn't stepped in. I'm angry that it's taking so long to stop what I consider now to be a barbaric and obsolete practice, which even in my common sense, even my common sense tells me, how on earth could I ever have thought that twisting someone's neck could improve their health? I mean, it just seems so ridiculous. We can put a man on the moon, but we haven't figured out that maybe this might be a dangerous practice. I mean, it just defies logic. I can't believe it's 2008 and we're still allowing this type of thing to go on. Why hasn't no one stepped in to put a stop to it? Why is my wife in this situation? Why am I in this situation? And why will others tomorrow be in the same situation? It just seems absolutely redundant. It goes beyond anything I could ever even attempt to find words to describe today. When I drive by a sign advertising chiropractic as promoting good health, it makes me want to vomit. I feel sick to my stomach. But if I could say one thing to a chiropractor or ask one thing of them, it would probably be this. And having now spent thousands and thousands and thousands of hours in hospital settings caring for my wife, I would like to see someone spend 24 hours with me looking after Sandy, changing her, lifting her, stretching her, doing her personal care, her teeth, her muscles, repositioning her, helping her breathe, squeezing her chest to get more air out, cleaning her. But I'd like to see them spend 24 hours with a tetraplegic, and I think if they did this, it would be interesting to see how they could look at themselves in the mirror the next day and attempt to do the same types of treatment to the next victim who comes in their door. I'd like them to get just a little taste of what it is to spend a very small fraction of their life caring for someone who requires 24-hour care. The only problem with that scenario is they would never feel the pain the way the husband does. If it were your mother or your sister or your child, maybe then they'd get the message.
Thanks, David.